And to get to the root of the matter, to the heart of the matter, you can't just talk to the Candace Owens of the world who was just on this show a few days ago and made her points clearly known. You also got to talk to somebody like my next guest. He is here to discuss this. He is the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League. He is Mr. Johnathan Greenblatt.
Always good to see you.
You know, there's so much to get into right now. We've seen so much being said, so much happening in the world. Your take on exactly what is transpiring between Israel and Iran at this particular moment in time?
Look, in many ways, I would describe what's happening between Israel and Iran as one of those forever wars that we hear a lot about, except that this forever war was declared by the Islamic Republic of Iran 46 years ago. You know, Stephen A., 46 years ago, after the Islamic Revolution, the regime declared death to Israel, death to America. And they had been waging an overt and covert war against the Jewish people, the Jewish state of Israel, and, you know, the United States of America for nearly half a century. They've committed terror acts around the world, some of which ended up murdering scores of Jewish people.
All right, all praise to our Heavenly Father, the Most High Yah, name of our Lord and Savior. Some of y'all say Yahusha, some of y'all say Yahushua, and some of y'all say Jesus. All right, so as y'all can see from the, the previous clip, Stephen A. Smith, who recently had Candace Owens on, his podcast, turns around and brings Johnathan Greenblatt, who's of the ADL, and he comes up and basically, accuses Candace Owens of being a liar, right? Or telling lies, about what's going on with, Israel and Iran and all this stuff going on. So, you can see the Zionist propaganda that is beginning to start taking place. Now, what you just heard him say in that clip was about, how Iran has had a problem with the state of Israel since, about half a century, since the 70s and everything. But what he's not telling is the whole truth about this, So we're going to talk about how, the things that he says about Candace, I'm gonna show y'all that later on, and the things he says about Tucker Carlson, we'll cover that later on in this video. But first, let's go into what actually happened between the United States and, the Jewish people and Britain and Iran, to the point that there's really this hostility going on, okay? And it started in 1953 with Operation Ajax and with the overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh. Let's go to the clips.
In 1953, Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh made a bold move. He nationalized Iran's oil, kicking out British companies who had profited for decades. But the West couldn't let that stand. The CIA and British MI6 launched Operation Ajax, a covert coup to remove him. They paid mobs, spread fake news, and bribed military leaders. Soon chaos gripped Tehran. Mossadegh was overthrown, and the Shah was reinstalled as a dictator loyal to the West. For 26 years, the Shah ruled with an iron fist, protected by the US. The Iranian people silenced, tortured, and watched their democracy disappear. This betrayal planted the seeds for the 1979 Islamic Revolution and decades of tension between Iran and the US. It all began with one coup. Operation Ajax, when oil mattered more than democracy.
It's actually been an open secret for decades, but for the first time now, the CIA has released documents that show its role in the 1953 coup. That is the coup that toppled Iran's democratically elected prime minister. Mohammad Mossadegh had moved to nationalize oil production in Iran. Well, the U.S. was concerned at the time that that would mean a victory for the Soviets in the Cold War. So shortly after his election, the CIA began to plan his overthrow, teaming up with Britain's MI6.
Now, the CIA, we've seen it spelling out its involvement in a series of newly declassified documents. These are the actual documents marked confidential, top secret, eyes only. It's the stuff of crime and mystery and spy novels. This one talks about the security implications of CIA letters of commendation for those who served in that operation codenamed TP Ajax. And this one, dated July 22nd, 1953, almost a month before the coup, it talks about preparing an official American statement to follow a successful coup. So let's dig deeper into this story. We're joined now by Middle East analyst Robin Wright. She's in from Washington. Robin, this is an event that the Iranians still talk about 60 years later with surprising frequency. What have you learned from these documents that you got to get a look at?
Well, I've written about this episode in 3 different books, so this is, as you point out, not something new, but the fact is the United States has finally openly provided the documents and details. And it talks about how this was approved at the highest levels of government. It details the amount of money that went into buying, currying favor among the various sectors of Iranian society. And it points out how important this really was. Little did the CIA understand that this would have extraordinary repercussions 25 years later.
So what y'all just saw is that in 1953, Mohammad Mossadegh was democratically elected, right? And he was basically, he nationalized the oil, meaning he's taking all of the oil reserves or whatever, and he's keeping the profit for Iran and for its people, right? Same thing that Muammar Gaddafi had done. And when they went over there to Libya and overthrew him, you know, in like 2012, 2013, somewhere around in there. But anyhow, Mossadegh, you know, had nationalized the oil. He kicked BP, you know what I'm saying, out of the region. So Britain and the Americans did not like that, right? So they went through Operation Ajax, and now you can see it's declassified that the CIA actually went in and overthrew Iran's, you know what I mean, democratically elected president. They overthrew him. When they overthrew him, they put in the Shah of Iran, and he oppressed the people over there. So basically, you know what I mean, all that went on, you know, and there was all this resentment that went on in Iran against the United States and against Britain and against these Jewish financiers, right? So the bottom line is now, remember what we talked about, how Israel, you know what I mean, the state of Israel, they used our identity to even get down there because those are not the true Jewish people. They're not the true children of Israel, right? They're Jewish people. They're not the true children of Israel. They went down there and they got a foothold in the Middle East off the coast of Palestine, right? But now remember what we read as far as in Albert Pike's, you know what I mean, letter, that first of all, the Third World War was to get a conflict going between this new secular state of Israel and the Arab or Muslim world. Now let me show you exactly what happened and how Iran became, you know, a heavy center of the Arab Muslim world, right? Because they had a revolution that took place in 1979 in Iran when they went to overthrow this puppet that they put in, that the United States and Britain and them put in, the Shah of Iran. In 1979, the people overthrew him. Now let me show you this clip.
1979. Iran erupts in revolution, driven by widespread discontent with the Shah's authoritarian rule and Western influence. Ayatollah Khomeini becomes the face of the revolution, uniting diverse groups under the banner of Islamic governance. Mass protests and civil disobedience cripple the Shah's regime, leading to his exile. Khomeini returns from exile, galvanizing support and establishing an Islamic republic. Radical changes sweep Iran. Western ties are severed and strict religious laws are imposed. The revolution inspires global Islamic movements and reshapes Middle Eastern geopolitics. The Iranian Revolution's legacy is complex, marked by both empowerment and repression.
All right. So what you see, you know, now you see how Iran became Muslim. You know what I'm saying? How, you know, once they got, you know, the Ayatollah in, and now all of a sudden he made it, you know, a Muslim theocracy, you know what I mean, with Muslim rules and Muslim laws. And so this is what became, you know, the focal point of the Arab countries, you know what I'm saying, for the most part. Not to mention, you know, they had went against the West. So you see, that's where this Arab-Israel conflict is born. So you see now they've got everything in position as far as the Luciferians are concerned, because you got this Jewish secular state of Israel, the Zionists, and now you got your Muslim Arab leader in Iran, right? Now, keep in mind, all of this still has to do with oil, because see, with Iran trying to nationalize the oil, that's the reason why, you know what I mean, that Mossadegh got overthrew because he was trying to, keep all their oil proceeds to himself, right? So then that's when they overthrew him. Now, why is it that Iran is so key as far as, the oil is concerned? It's because everything has to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So now let me show y'all on a map about the Strait of Hormuz and show y'all this so y'all can understand. What you see here, is a map where you can see Iran and you can see Israel and you can basically see the Persian Gulf. So let's zoom into the Persian Gulf, okay? Now what you see in here is called the Strait of Hormuz. It's this region right in here, okay? And as you can see, it's right off the coast of Iran. Now, in order for all the oil that passes through this area, everything has to come through this small little channel right here where you see it says Hormuz Island. You see it, Strait of Hormuz, right? Everything has to pass through here. So if the Iranians ever got, a nuclear weapon or anything to defend this area, they could shut this down and they could basically control how the oil gets in and out of this little channel here. And it could affect, everybody's oil supply. So this is one of the real primary reasons why they don't want Iran, to have a way to defend itself, because they don't want Iran to be able to control that Strait of Hormuz.
But what would the world look like today if the Iranians were using nuclear weapons to stop shipping trade in the Straits of Hormuz? What would that be like?
Johnathan, answer that question. Answer that question directly. In your estimation, in the estimation of the Anti-Defamation League, in the estimation of the Jewish community, how would the world look if Iran had a nuclear weapon? Paint the picture for us. Yeah, paint the picture for us.
I want to be clear. I can't say I speak for the whole Jewish community, but okay. ADL is the oldest anti-hate organization in the world. We've been fighting anti-Semitism, racism, extremism for more than 112 years. Okay. And here's what I can say. Iran is the largest state sponsor of anti-Semitism, extremism, and terror in the world. It's not just my opinion, right? It's the facts as presented to us by the US State Department, by the CIA, by the British government and others. And so what would the world look like if the organization funding Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis and the others had a nuclear Damoclean sword they could wave over the head of the West? And, what would it look like for the Jewish state of Israel? Look, Israel's the size of New Jersey. What would it mean if our strongest ally, what would it mean if a key trading partner, what would it mean if a country with whom we share our values has a nuclear gun pointed at its head? I mean, I just got to say, we're willing to get engaged in other countries around the world where we think U.S. interests are compromised or challenged. This could not be a clearer case. And keep in mind one other thing, Stephen A.
Okay.
It's not just about Israel. The Iranians have killed hundreds of Americans in Saudi, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Syria. They tried to assassinate President Trump. They took American hostages. Again and again, they've worked against our interests. So this isn't just a Jewish fight, Stephen A. Your audience needs to know this is an American fight because Iran has made it an American fight. Now, look, that doesn't mean it's a fight between the American people and the Iranian people. Far from it. The Iranian people are extraordinary. But the Islamic Republic of Iran, this despotic government that not only militates against America, that not only foments hate against Jews, Stephen A., they oppress gays, they oppress women, other ethnic and religious minorities. They shoot their protesters in the head or arrest them en masse. They close the internet, on and on. They repress their own people, let alone other groups around the world. And that's why I think we have a problem with them.
All right, so y'all see the blatant hypocrisy. Here it is. They want to try to be the moral authority to everybody in the world. Yet he sits up here talking about defending, the gays and everything else. If anything, you say you the Jewish people and you the children of Israel that got brought back. Y'all are supposed to be against that, right? So you see, he's a straight liar and a hypocrite. So now let's go Luke chapter 12, verse 1-5 and see what it says. In the meantime, when there were gathered together an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trode one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples first of all. So we know this is Yahushua, Jesus. Beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy, right? So you can see these people ain't nothing but hypocrites. They want to try to be the moral authority over Iran, and you're not even the moral authority in that country over there, and you ain't even in that country. You over here in America, right? Verse 2, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore, whatsoever you have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which you have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops. And I say unto you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do. So if they supposed to be the children of Israel, they ain't supposed to be afraid of no Iran. But I will forewarn you whom you shall fear. Fear him which after he hath killed hath power to cast into hell. Yeah, I say unto you, fear him. So they're supposed to be fearing the Most High Yah. And yet we see they're over in that land and they don't got no fear. That's why they begging America for help.
I will say one other thing. I am very alarmed, Stephen A., about the level of anti-Semitism in this country, where commentators, as you were alluding to on the far right, like Tucker Carlson, or like, Dave Smith, or frankly, like Candace Owens, that you had on your show, or people on the radical left, people like Mehdi Hassan, people like Hassan Piker, people like Max Blumenthal, make wild claims that the Zionists control America, that this is Israel's war and they're manipulating the United States. Like, that's baloney. And I think good people should call that out every time, because it foments anti-Semitism and hate right here at home.
Well, you brought up the name Candace Owens, who was a guest on this show just last week. And let me get you to respond to what she has to say. I mean, she's got over 4 million subscribers on the YouTube channel, over 6 million followers on Instagram alone. She's very popular. Nobody can deny that. And she's somebody on the right. She's a voter and a supporter unapologetically of Trump, of most conservative causes. But on this particular issue, she has been all in against Israel and then some. So let's hear what she has to say and get your response to exactly what she has had to say about Israel and, to some degree, the Jewish community. Listen to this.
Well, it was very obvious that this war was going to happen because the American foreign policy is dictated by Israel. And it was problematic that Bibi Netanyahu was increasing his rhetoric against Iran. And this is after they have effectively seized land in Syria. They were cheering what happened in Syria. We knew that it was going to wind up with Christians being mass murdered, which is what's happening right now. And what's happening in the Middle East, for those who aren't clear on this, is Israel is simply is expanding its borders, whether that be by carpet bombing women and children, which we have not had a person with power effectively state that this is morally wrong, of course. And now it seems they also want to annex the West Bank. What's happening in the West Bank, which has nothing to do with Gaza, is the individuals that live there are being traumatized by the IDF. And so if you're paying attention, it's very clear that they have become increasingly radical, and they are effectively, as they always do, using the American military to fulfill their foreign policy interests, because they are a small nation. They don't have the bodies to be able to accomplish that. They need the might of the American military to accomplish their foreign Middle Eastern objectives. And so, yeah, it was very, I am on record saying this for the last 2 years. We're going to war with Iran one way or the other, because what Bibi Netanyahu wants is what Bibi Netanyahu gets.
Floor is yours. Floor is yours, Johnathan. Your response to that.
Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie.
Give it to me.
I mean, look, there's a lot to unpack in what she said. Again, the Islamic Republic of Iran declared war on America 46 years ago. They've slaughtered hundreds of servicemen, civilians, journalists, diplomats, etc. They tried to kill the president of the United States, again, President Trump. They've tried to kill and put fatwas out on people like former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN John Bolton, former State Department Special Envoy Brian Hook. I mean, this is what they have done in just recent years. And the reality is that to make these claims that Israel is carpet bombing, does she know what that term even means? Because you have literally no examples of that whatsoever. Israel hasn't taken any territory out of Syria. Maybe she's talking about the Golan Heights, which Israel took in 1967 after the Syrians shot at Israeli kibbutzim and Israeli civilians, lobbed mortars from that high strategic plateau for decades against them. Maybe that's what she means. Look, Israel has done more to protect religious minorities, including Christians, including Druze, in Syria and in Israel. The only country in the Middle East where the Christian community is growing is Israel, not in any of the neighboring countries. And lastly, I'll just say these claims that like Israel needs America to fight its wars. I mean, look at what the Israeli military has accomplished in Gaza, taking out Sinwar, in Lebanon, taking out the Hezbollah leadership, in Iran, taking out the Iranian military command structure, you know, all over. Israel has fought these wars entirely on its own. Now, it's certainly true that the Israeli military uses some American military equipment for which they pay. Most of the money that we give to Israel in military aid, Israel's obligated to spend on U.S. munitions, U.S. equipment, U.S. hardware. So this is a very positive relationship, and it gives us a beachhead in the most, you know, in this very strategic part of the planet.
Okay.
So America doesn't fight Israel's wars, but let me make sure that your listeners are clear about this. It is anti-Semitic and a longstanding practice to accuse the Jews of manipulating events for their own interest.
Lie after lie after lie after lie, right? To take the very words that he tried to say about Candace, that she was telling lies. But now y'all see, you heard him say about the Strait of Hormuz, right? And also you heard him sit up here and act as if that Iran just all of a sudden hates the United States and hates the Jewish people and all these people for no odd reason, right? Like they just all of a sudden they just want to attack. You went over there because they nationalized their oil. And how ironic that that happened in like 1950 something after y'all got down there in 1948. You see what I'm saying? Next thing you know, Iran and over there, they're trying to get people out of there, Britain and everybody else, so that they can, you know, make sure they keep their oil proceeds to themselves. And guess what? The thief wants to justify going over here trying to steal people's natural resources. If that oil is in the land of Iran, then that oil belongs to the Iranians. So y'all supposed to have to work fair deals with them, and they can sell it to whoever they want to for whatever reason they want to. But no, y'all are not like that. That's the equivalent of me coming into your houses and you got food in your house as a husband. I come in here and I start putting propaganda to your wife and your children to overthrow you, to get rid of you, and then put in another husband. I put in a puppet husband for your family, and then tell your family to pay me taxes and to send me some of your food out of your houses, right? That's what y'all do to people. And you sit here and you act like you so righteous, and you go on here into Stephen A. because you know that most of his viewers don't understand any of this stuff. So you trying to get people to go in and fight a war, to support you in a war. Their children are going to be the one that get drafted, and you're going to sit your butt over here when you're supposed to be Jewish and take your butt over there to Israel and fight. Go join the IDF. Go put your butt out there and you go fight Iran. Why you want somebody else to fight your war? And then you sit here and think that people don't see that you're a manipulator? You're a grand manipulator. You see what I'm saying? And Stephen A., you sitting here right after you had Candace on your show, then you're going to let him come back and backbite her. Because you work for those people. You're a sellout. Let's go back and listen to some more of this life.
You know, again, the Russians use this to justify the massacres of the Jews. The Nazis use this to justify the massacres of the Jews. Arab governments use this to justify pushing out and massacring the Jews after 48. And now Candace Owens is using it. And it's not just irresponsible, it's incitement. And so I don't care how many followers she has, what she doesn't have at her fingertips are the facts. And a cursory understanding of these issues would lead you to conclude that the claims that she's making are not just spurious, they're just flat out wrong.
I heard what you had to say about Candace Owens. Let's talk about folks on the extreme right, the Steve Bannons of the world, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, and others who are adamant that the United States shouldn't be involved. Let Israel handle this matter on their own. Why do we have to get involved? We need to be about America first, more nationalistic in our view and our actions as opposed to being globalistic. Your thoughts about that?
It's interesting because I think you're kind of making the point that anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish hate is an equal opportunity employer. And you have these folks in the MAGA movement. Now, look, President Trump has been extraordinary in terms of support of the Jewish state, as have many of the people in the current administration. But you have people around them like Tucker Carlson, like Steve Bannon, who are, I think, again, just wrong on the facts and have a certain animus toward the Jewish state, which is very worrisome to me. A nuclear-armed Iran, again, which has threatened America for decades and decades and decades, is deeply problematic, not just to us, by the way, or to the Jewish state, but to our allies in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates, in Bahrain, all countries upon which Iran has territorial ambitions. But of course, as well, in Qatar. Like, I would ask Tucker Carlson, if I could, tell us about your relationship with Qatar. Help us understand, how your bills get paid. Qatar is this country that sort of acts in one hand as an interlocutor between America and Israel and Hamas and Iran, but they're constantly playing both sides. And they've got very deep pockets and have used that money and spread it around. And I think the influence of Qatari money is deeply problematic on our public conversation.
So you see, when it came to Candace, he flat out said she was telling lies. But when it came to the extreme right, you see the difference in respect levels. Oh, well, you know what? They're wrong, and oh, what about Tucker Carlson? You didn't call him a flat liar. You know what I'm saying? You didn't say, oh, lie. No, you went in with him and it was like, oh, he's wrong, but what about him with Qatar? What about him with Qatar? Now you're just trying to throw something out here that, Tucker Carlson is being paid by a foreign entity. Well, if Tucker Carlson is being paid by a foreign entity, whether it's Qatar or whether it's Israel, it's the same thing, you see? So, if y'all are running over here and influencing politicians to do things on your behest, if Qatar is doing the same thing, what's the problem? What's the difference, right? But y'all come over here, and again, where you're missing all of this is you are not the true children of Israel. You lied about all of that. And you got a man who's potentially a true Israelite interviewing you, calling you what he is. You know what I'm saying? You sitting up here, then stole this man's identity and sitting up here smiling in his face, you know what I mean? And flaunting it all in his face. But now that we know, now y'all refuse to, the Jewish people do this to us here. People do this. Y'all own slave ships. Y'all were the ones that owned plantations. Y'all were the ones that sold, helped them aid and capture us and sell us as a people. And you sit here and try to grandstand, in our faces. As if we are not, man, screw you. You know what I'm saying? You want us to be mad at all these white people, but you participated in it too. But yet you talk about how everybody is afflicted and done things to you. No, all of y'all did something to us. So don't come on here, you know what I mean? When y'all own the music industry and all this type of stuff, and you've been poisoning our children by putting all this garbage out here, you know what I'm saying? Oh, y'all don't have no problem with promoting music and stuff on TV and through these music industry, calling us the N-word and everything else. But yet, as soon as somebody say something against y'all, oh, you're being anti-Semitic, you're being anti-Semitic. We put a video out, you know what I'm saying? A documentary saying that we're the true children of Israel. Oh, that's anti-Semitic movie. Y'all don't name that movie. That's anti-Semitic. Y'all don't listen to that. You know what? All of that because y'all wanted to go down here into the Middle East and control those resources. But Satanists, the Luciferians, they went down here because they're trying to rule the world. And Satan knows he only got 1 hour. He only gets 1 hour. So y'all do what you do, but you understand it's going to come with a consequence. But what I want y'all all to see is this level of propaganda that these people are willing to do, right? All they do is propaganda. So now let's go into this propaganda section of this video, where now Candace is going to start exposing these people how they orchestrated a campaign against her, right? Check it out.
well as far as debates go. It was very clear that Tucker was the determined winner. But you have to imagine that for the groups that have spent millions upon millions, billions of dollars investing in poisoning the minds of young Americans, poisoning the minds of people at Sunday school to believe that, like, as almost an indulgence, that if you just let Israel do whatever it wants, you will be blessed. That this interview would have sent them mad, and mad it did. Because oddly, in response to this debate, despite everyone agreeing Tucker won handily, we started seeing an appearance of influencers that began not just attacking Tucker and pretending like nobody just watched what they watched and going like, Tucker's crazy, but strangely attaching my name to it. It was not just Tucker, it was Tucker and Candace. I'm going to show you just one example, okay? It's a little long, but it's worth watching. This is a woman, her name is Nadine. She has 16,000 followers, and this is the video that she did in reaction to Tucker's sit down with Ted Cruz. Take a listen.
Okay, did anybody else watch the Tucker Carlson interview with Ted Cruz yesterday and think, what in the world has happened to Tucker Carlson?
No one thought that.
I really used to like this guy, but he looked so insane during this interview. He was so offended and acted completely juvenile. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen Tucker Carlson do. He looked so bad. He literally made himself look very weak and immature. Did anybody else get that same? I mean, I was watching it with this open mind thinking this is going to be a great interview. And then it just went downhill really fast. But Tucker was, it grossed me out. I don't even think I can watch Tucker Carlson anymore. I really feel like he needs to give an apology to Ted Cruz. It was, what a debacle. Anybody else feel the same way? If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Come back, tell me what you think, because I watched it twice and could not believe what I was seeing. Tucker, get a grip, dude. You were so rude, so condescending. It was disgusting. And you know what? And let's talk about Candace Owens, too.
Let's do that.
I used to like watching her, but she's gone completely crazy and downhill. What is happening with these people? Yeah, just when you think you've got the right people on the right side, boom. Cuckoo. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm mind blown today over it.
I'm mind blown about just how unconvincing of a performance that was personally. A couple of things that I want to point out is that she got completely crushed in the comments. I mean, 99% of comments were like, are we watching the same thing? We can pull up just a couple of these here. Who paid you to post this video? Be honest. There's still time to delete this. Blind much? He exposed Ted fully. It's like, you're telling us now not to believe our own eyes. It's ridiculous. And so people just called her out and were like, literally, who is paying you? Another thing to point out is that she purports to be a fan of Candace Owens. She's no longer a fan of Candace Owens. What's happened to Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens?
All right, so now let's look at a definition for propaganda, right? What does it say? Information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. We'll also go to the AI overview, and it says, what is a simple definition of propaganda? Propaganda is the deliberate spreading of information, which may be true or false, to influence people's opinions and actions, often to promote a specific cause or agenda. All right, so y'all see, for example, propaganda. Say, my analogy about, a man and his family, and he's got resources, he got food in his home. So basically, I want the food that's in his home, right? So basically, I'm going to start getting into his wife's ears, and then to his children's ears, right? Oh, your father's such a bad guy. He's terrible. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why he treats you like that. Oh, your husband, he's so oppressive to you. Oh, oh my, he shouldn't do you that way, right? He don't give you freedom. He don't let you go out. He don't give you, oh, you should get rid of him. Y'all don't have to put up with that, right? Oh, I got a friend, and he's, he's a real loving, kind man, and you should be with him, right? So now I turn the wife's heart, the children's heart against the husband to the point they can't get along. She overthrows him. She kicks him out. Then I tell my friend, "Yeah, man, go get with her." Da 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 da. He goes and gets with her, and guess what? He starts handing me the food out of that home, right? Oh yeah, now he's got her working, right? Where her husband was taking care of her, but now he's got her out there working, and he keeps her every month. He hands me a little bit of the food, and I'm like, yeah, we running game on them, right? This is how they use propaganda. Remember, that's what they did with Iran. The CIA told you that they went into Operation Ajax and they overthrew Iran. That's why the Iranians don't like America, Britain, or these Jewish people, right? Because they realize you overthrew our government. And then you put us under harsh leadership, right? So now you see, now that Candace Owens and all them is telling people, why we need to go over here and fight this war for these people, right? Now here comes all the propaganda. Oh, they're so crazy, they cuckoo. Talk about we can't bless Israel. Tucker Carlson, wow, he's really lost it. Cuckoo. And you see now this the media, Zionist, propaganda arm starting to show you its hands, right? And who it's using. And this is what they don't want people to do. This is why they go to Stephen A. Smith. You know what I mean? Oh, you had Candace on there. Oh, well, we got to rebuke that. You know what I'm saying? Put me on your show. Stephen A. Okay, boss. I saw his boss. I ain't know, oh man, Candace gonna get on there and start talking, get you like that, sir. Right? That's what they do. Let's go back because Candace really went in on him now. Again, we're gonna get on Candace because we ain't gonna let her move us into this Catholic stuff either, right? But at the same point in time, let's go back and listen to some more of this.
So then I get a flurry of emails, telling us that it's not just Nadine. On Sunday, people went to church, whatever church it is that they attend, whatever denomination, and there were a flurry of pastors that preached to their congregation regarding the evils of, you guessed it, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Again, why are we in the same breath? Okay. Let's check out this preacher. I've covered his face because I don't think it's relevant. I'm not trying to create an army of people to go after him. It's not what I believe in. I want to attack the substance of what he's saying on stage, not the individual. But here he is. He gets up on stage this past Sunday and he preaches about Candace, Tucker, and a couple of other political people. Take a listen.
Let me just say this. If some of us spent the same amount of time we did on Fox News as we do the Bible, there would be a revival in America today. Some of you listen to Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, and these guys are anti-Semitic. I don't care what anyone says. I'm going to say it. They're anti-Semitic, and their rhetoric is dangerous.
And that's not it, by the way. Like I was watching this sermon going, this is incredible. Listen to who else he mentioned later on.
We're going to have my friend Robert Stearns is going to come here. And he has a unique ministry that God is utilizing him to touch the Israeli people. He knows Netanyahu. He knows all these amazing people. And I met Mike Huckabee, an ambassador of Israel. Let me just say something about Mike Huckabee. He's the real deal.
Oh.
He's the real deal. He's a good man of God.
So what y'all see now, is the influencers' arms, right? You see who they're using, right? And the key word that you always hear is anti-Semitic or anti-Semitism, right? Once you hear that, you know where it's coming from, right? Now, the bottom line is the same thing that Candace is talking about concerning how now they're doing her and Tucker Carlson, and the dude Tucker Carlson and Cameron and so on, and he don't even know their names, right? But that's the same thing they've been doing with the Hebrew Israelites, right? When the Hebrew Israelite movement and awakening start happening, all these Christian Zionists start saying the same thing on cue. Oh, it doesn't matter, who the children of Israel is. Well, why aren't y'all saying that to them people that went back over there in 1948? If it didn't matter who they were, then why did they go back to that land? Oh, but y'all say that fulfilled prophecy. But if they're not the true children of Israel, then did that fulfill prophecy? So ain't that somebody lying? Didn't the Bible say that there will be Jews who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan? So if they are not the true children of Israel, then who are the true children of Israel? And the true children of Israel, according to prophecy, have to go back to that land. So what do we got going on here, people? But you see, this is how those propaganda stuff, and the first people that they come through is the churches, right? So you see now, their agenda is to go into these evangelical churches and get them to support a war on behalf of the Jewish people. That's why they're coming after Tucker Carlson. That's why they're coming after cameras or whatever he said. That's why they're coming after Candace Owens. You know what I'm saying? It's because the bottom line is they don't want you to tell people not to support the war. Simple as that. It ain't hard to figure out. Let's go back to the clips.
So we decided to prod a little bit further, reach out to some of these congregants that were sending us clips. And so specifically about that guy, I said, like, is this a normal thing? Does he normally speak about Israel and Bibi Netanyahu? And they said, no, actually, he had just come back from a trip to Israel. We didn't know he was going to Israel. He came back from a trip to Israel, and suddenly he was telling us that we needed to donate to Israel. LOL, if you have a job, you donate to Israel, my friends. Trillions of tax dollars, weaponry, you're good, okay? But he said that they needed to donate to Israel, and suddenly they're getting sermons about Bibi Netanyahu, and I'm like, what? I couldn't imagine my priest never, not once, I've been Catholic for a year and a half, never once has brought up a political person ever in the homily. But okay, I'm like, now I'm getting what they're talking about, because I know that these churches, these mega churches, otherwise, they can be sponsored on trips to, you know, these, like, they're well taken care of. They go over on these overseas trips by these organizations that purport to be alliances. And they said, yes, actually, this was one of these trips. It was sponsored by an organization called Eagle Wings, which is a quote unquote alliance between Christians and Jews. Now, here's what I'm saying. Just taking a look at this website that sponsored this particular pastor, if it's an alliance between Christian and Jews, should there be a crucifix? Like, do you see Christ? What kind of alliance is this? I just see the Star of David. I see the state of Israel right off the bat. What kind of alliance is this? Does this mean, like, we get to work for the state of Israel? Like, just looking at the vibes.
So you see, this rabbit hole is getting deeper, right? Now Candace then went in and did some research, but that's what we say about her. She knows how to do research. So how is it you haven't researched on who the true Hebrew Israelites are, right? How is that? You said you watched the movie, so we already know that you know. And you claiming to be a Catholic, you repping Catholic awful hard for you doing research and knowing what the Catholics did to your people too. You see what I'm saying? So the bottom line is you coming off of that going hard on Israel, but you not saying that those people are not true Israelites. That the true Israelites got put on slave ships and scattered all over the world. But now we see that they got organizations of which they are paying people, right, to come back and deliver their propaganda, right? This is what we talk about, you know what I'm saying? When with Philip Anthony Mitchell, right? How he went over there to Israel. Next thing you know, he came back, he's wearing all black. He's all thugged out. You see what I'm saying? Now, all of a sudden, he wants to speak against the Hebrew Israelites. That Tommy Ariomi, when we did video on him, he's from over, you know, somewhere in Europe. Then all of a sudden, he comes to America. Next thing you know, he wants to speak against the Hebrew Israelites, right? See, a lot of these pastors are on the take. And this is what, you know, Candace Owens is starting to rip the cover off of these people and show how these Jewish people try to send people in to influence your thinking and your beliefs so that they can further promote their agendas. Let's go back to the clip.
And then I start thinking beyond this. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm getting these flurry of emails and pastors are getting on stage on Sunday and simultaneously talking about Tucker and Candace, of every plausible arrangement of names that they could make, they go with Tucker and Candace, it means that there had to have been some sort of a script that went out, right? So I take a shot. Money talks. I'm pretty open about stuff, and I just go ahead and put a bounty. Candace the Bounty Hunter, right? Put me on A&E. I want to have a show, Candace the Bounty Hunter, right? And I just say on my Instagram stories, if you work in a pastoral office and you're one of these people that attended a sermon recently and saw that suddenly people were saying Candace and Tucker, if you have any information, I will pay for that information. Like, I am willing to pay up to $15,000 to get this information, because actually I should offer to pay more, because this really matters. If people think that they are going and yet their pastors are potentially being bought and paid for by outside organizations, whether it's gifts in kind, by fancy trips, or actually cash that's being exchanged so that they can get up and they preach you and they're actually just brainwashing you and they're selling you out, like, this deeply matters. They're talking about people's faith. They think they're going to heaven and potentially their pastors are bought and paid for. And you are not going to believe this, you guys. Sure enough, on Friday, June 20th, an email went out. And I want to be clear, this is an email that went out to a different church, right? To a different pastor, but similarly from an alliance organization, a Judeo- organization, but like, we maybe won't do anything for Christians. We're going to tell Christians what they can do for Israel, okay? So the email, we're going to pull this up for you guys. It's from the Center for Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation. And here is the email, as you can see, that went out on June 20th. It says, we've obviously covered anything that was identifying here. We verified this. We had screen recordings, everything. It says, I hope this message finds you well. At the Center for Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation, we've always believed that the strength of our communities lies in how we show up for one another, especially in difficult times. That's why I'm reaching out. Recently, we've been troubled by certain statements made by public voices like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, individuals with large platforms whose words carry weight. While we understand and respect differing political views, the language they've used lately has crossed a line. It's not just provocative and controversial. In some cases, it's veered into rhetoric that echoes classic anti-Semitic tropes, questioning Jewish loyalty, downplaying the Holocaust, and framing Jewish communities as global manipulators. Now, it's going to get a little ironic here, because if you're going to talk about a little bit of manipulation, it's going to come at the end of this email. Here's the second page of the email. It may not always be obvious at first glance, but to those of us who've seen where this kind of speech leads, it's deeply unsettling. We're not asking anyone to take sides politically. This is about something deeper, about spiritual accountability and the moral influence church leaders like yourself have in shaping how people treat one another. With that in mind, we'd be grateful if you'd consider speaking briefly on this in one of your upcoming services. Even a few words encouraging awareness, compassion, and caution when engaging with media voices that spread division under the cover of opinion. And if you're open to it and willing to share a recording or a summary of your message, we'd like to offer a small gesture of support, a donation of $2,500 in Bitcoin to your congregation. No strings attached. No, it sounded to me like there was very much string attached here. Just an expression of our thanks and solidarity. Please feel free to reply directly if you'd like to connect further, or if we can provide any background resources for your message. And I want to be clear, guys, there's no strings attached.
What are your thoughts, family? Sister Reveal, you ain't right. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? The bottom line is, Candace just ripped the scab right off the wound. You know what I'm saying? But this is not nothing new. We know, you know what I'm saying, that preachers are the number one moral influencer. You see what they said? You know, you influence people morally, moral influencers. Why do you think that these people, every election, right? They go in here and to the white churches, and they go in and start pushing, you know what I mean, Republican propaganda to them, right? And they start up here and they bring in Republicans to go in there and talk to the churches and everything else. All of a sudden, these politicians become real faith people then. On the black church, guess what? Here comes the Democrats, right? Come in. Preachers, let them come stand right in there. These people ain't bit more said anything about the Most High, God, Jesus, or anything else. But now, as soon as election time comes, here they come. When this came out, right, they was paying pastors to go in here and tell people to take that. Now, all of a sudden, they telling people that this stuff is hurting people, right? I got kicked off YouTube, Facebook, and everything else trying to warn people, right? But at the same point in time, this is nothing new. What she's exposing is how these people do. They will use money and go tell a preacher, we need you to say this. We need you to talk about this. And guess what the hireling does? Yes, boss. Just gives me more, right? And that's what they do. So guess what? Now, in their zeal to get this war kicked off, they need Americans, sons and daughters, right? And they ain't after your sons now. That's why they try to make, women think they so tough or whatever. They want you to go out here in the war too. They want your sons and your daughters to get out here and go out here and fight for them and go over here, take those people's resources so they can sit up there and say, ha, 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 we're in control of the whole world. We got these dummies out here, going out here fighting for us, and they ain't going to receive no parts of this, right? We still going to tax them and all their labors too, right? This is the stuff that they do. And everybody, sit here, we so busy looking over here. Oh, you saying Jesus. Oh, you saying, Yahweh Shah. Oh, you saying Yahusha. That you don't see that the enemy is playing all y'all against each other, right? Hebrew Israelites going down here attacking these Christian churches. Christian churches attacking the Hebrew Israelites. You don't even understand. They use, some of these people are puppets on both sides, right? Because they ain't telling the truth. If your doctrine's not right, why ain't you in here teaching people the doctrine? Instead of you worrying about all what these people over here saying, you teach them the truth. Then that way they got the truth. I ain't got to sit here and rip and tell everybody else down. But I will call you out. You know what I'm saying? You sitting up here and you ain't teaching the truth, and you're going to get exposed. The days of y'all sitting up here running amok, you know what I'm saying, and manipulating the people and keeping the people in darkness is over. We're coming towards the time of the end. That's why the Most High said, at the time of the end, knowledge shall be increased. But y'all don't want to teach people? Well then, let people see you for the fraud of who you are. So I'm glad Candace is exposing them. You know what I'm saying? To the Most High, y'all be the glory. But once again, thank y'all for watching. Till we meet again, the Most High bless each and every one of you. Pray. Remember, we got the Day of Atonement, fasting, 2025. Right? Pray, seek the Most High. Pray, ask the Father to fill you with his Holy Spirit in the name of his only begotten Son. Some of y'all say Yahusha. Some of y'all say Yahweh Shah. Some of y'all say Jesus. If any man have not the Spirit of the Most High, he is none of his. So even though we claim we know we the Israelites, we still have to be filled again. We're filled with his Spirit. We got to be grafted back into our own tree, right? For you a Gentile, you need to be grafted into Israel. You need to be grafted into the family. And the only way you're doing that is through receiving the Holy Spirit in Christ's name. All right. Y'all have a blessed, wonderful day. Till we meet again. Shalom.